Egypt's low carbon and sustainability priorities, projects, and investments. In fact, in January, we essentially kicked off what we refer to as the road to COP27 by hosting a 2-day hybrid event that featured U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry, but also had the Prime Minister of Egypt, the Foreign Minister of Egypt, who's also President-designate at COP27, plus many other both Egyptian and U.S. officials. And perhaps more importantly, we had many U.S. companies and executives from a range of different industries that were able to speak about the technologies, the solutions, the capabilities that they can bring to address the climate challenge, both in Egypt and around the globe. So with our GreenTech delegation next month, we see this as a further demonstration of the Chamber's commitment to ensuring that the private sector not only has a seat at the table, but is really part of the solution. During the visit in Cairo, we're going to, participants will have an opportunity to hear directly from Egyptian leaders about their clean energy projects and priorities, and provide you an opportunity to ask them questions. In addition, it would give you an opportunity to educate decision makers about the innovations and the tangible solutions that you provide that align with Egypt's clean energy priorities. So if you're not already registered for this delegation, I certainly encourage you to do so now. Now, before I hand this over to Ambassador Thorne, just a quick housekeeping. Once David finishes his remarks, Steve Lutz will then take the reins of the program here and introduce our colleagues from the U.S. U.S. Embassy Cairo, and kind of go through the agenda for the delegation. So without further ado, just want to briefly introduce Ambassador David Thorne, who is a special advisor to the climate envoy, Kerry. And I will just say that in addition to being ambassador to Italy and special advisor to the Secretary of State, earlier in his career, he and his team have just been incredibly constructive partners for us to work with as we prepare for, the COP27, but obviously for next month's delegation as well. So David, with that, let me turn things to you.
Okay. Thanks, Marty. And my apologies for being a little late. We had some technical difficulties that seem to always occur these days on virtual stuff. But I'm here, and I'm apologize for a delay. And thank you, first of all, for the kind introduction, Marty. It's always great to work with the Chamber. It's been a very successful time, that we've had together, especially 5 years ago when we did others of these kinds of partnerships and delegations, in fact, to Cairo. And I look forward to doing this one with all of you. On behalf of the Secretary and Kerry's team here in DC and our embassy in Cairo, we look forward to sharing this Green Business Delegation opportunity trip with you guys in a few weeks. The Egyptian COP, which takes place at Sharm el-Sheikh in November, is really the Africa COP. What goes on in Egypt is watched closely by the rest of Africa, and whereby, the year 2050, it's estimated that 1 out of every 4 people on the planet will live. Egypt wants this COP to be in Sharm to be a showcase of its aspirations and commitment to the green energy transition taking place across the world. We are partnering closely with Egypt to ensure success of COP27. A major priority for us is working with U.S. businesses to strengthen green investment in Egypt. This is important not only because it will help Egypt achieve its ambitious green growth objectives. It will also help U.S. companies take advantage of the growing global markets for clean technologies. It will demonstrate to other countries how the U.S. government and U.S. companies can work in partnership to help them achieve their climate goals as well. We're grateful to the U.S. Chambers, I mentioned, and especially AmCham Egypt for being our partners, because they're absolutely essential to making this mission a success. And I look forward to to being all together in Egypt next month. Embassy Cairo this morning, excuse me. But before you do, I wanted to share with you a little more about our climate priorities and how they are guiding our approach to this green trade mission. I also want to mention that along with our business group and with the chamber, we will have representatives from the Development Finance Corp, the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, USAID, UNR, and possibly others, together, of course, with the great folks we've got in Egypt and our embassy. So the U.S. government is really committed to facilitating what we're going to try to get done in this delegation. Just looking back, we made real progress at COP26 in raising climate ambition. We left Glasgow substantially closer to keeping the 1.5-degree goal within reach. And COP27 at Sharm el-Sheikh is yet another milestone in this decisive decade for climate action. Our strategy this year, building on Glasgow's success, is called Implementation Plus. The implementation part means all countries carrying through on the commitments, the NDCs they've already made. And I just want to make a comment that the International Energy Association, Fatih Birol, estimated that if all those commitments were kept, we in fact are on track now to hold climate to 1.8 degrees, climate warming to 1.8 degrees by 2050, which is encouraging, but not 1.5. The plus part that I mentioned means going further than we did in Glasgow, with additional commitments needed to truly meet the climate challenge. This includes strengthening those nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, not yet aligned with the Paris temperature goal, aligning all financial flows with net zero climate resilient pathways, redoubling efforts to decarbonize the global energy sector, and enacting a fast mitigation agenda to reduce near-term warming by rapidly cutting methane and other non-CO2 greenhouse gases and ending deforestation. It also means strengthening adaptation efforts, a special priority for Egypt as the regional leader hosting an African COP. All of these objectives inform our close bilateral collaboration with Egypt in the run-up to COP27. In February, the United States, where I was part of this, in the United States and Egypt launched a climate working group with 2 tracks. The first track focuses on COP27, simply put. The second focuses on bilateral cooperation in the areas of renewable energy, green hydrogen, methane abatement, clean transportation, water management and desalination, sustainable agriculture, and coastal resilience. The U.S. business community can make contributions in each of these areas, and we hope you'll think about those. We're working with our counterparts in the government of Egypt to identify specific opportunities for U.S. companies. The Egyptian government is also eager to hear from all of you on the ways U.S. companies can best contribute, from energy to agriculture, from finance to clean energy. I just want to stress the importance of the private sector. The private sector was critical to Glasgow's success. Secretary Kerry, myself, and our really great team continually stressed that this climate transition will not happen without the full engagement of the private sector. Hundreds of business leaders came to Glasgow. We continually stress that the green transition provides a huge business opportunity, or as Secretary Kerry often euphemistically says, the biggest business opportunity since the Industrial Revolution. He's not wrong. It is a huge opportunity. During the Glasgow, we worked with major financial institutions, and they worked for themselves, and they pledged trillions of dollars toward green investments by 2030. How those financial deals are going to happen is going to be up to us, but the money has been pledged toward that end. Also in Glasgow, President Biden launched, with of course help from our office, these were things that our office generated, some of our biggest initiatives. The First Movers Coalition with the World Economic Forum, the Clean Energy Demand Initiative, the Forest Investors Club, and the Agricultural Innovation Mission for Climate. All of these, I'm happy to discuss further at a later time. And the other thing that we're counting on private sector cooperation will be to deliver on the global methane pledge, which over 100 countries pledged to at Glasgow. The GreenTech Business Delegation is an opportunity for companies, multinationals, and SMEs alike, with the means, for the opportunity, and the commitment, and most of all, the initiative to come and make a difference. For this, the trade mission is just the start of an ongoing effort to help U.S. companies help Egypt meet its green growth objectives. And it is part of our broader effort to support green growth across Africa. With our help, Africa can be a green continent as well. And the challenges are enormous, but so too are the opportunities. And with that, Marty, I'll turn it back to you, and we'll hear from our embassy. Thanks.
Thank you, Ambassador. Really appreciate that. Steve, I'll turn to you.
No, thank you, Marty, Ambassador Thorne. Thank you for your leadership. Great to hear the constant plug for the role of the private sector. We're grateful for that, and thanks to all of our friends in the U.S. government who are supporting the GreenTech Delegation effort. And as the ambassador mentioned, a special thanks to our friends at AmCham for their partnership, not only on the GreenTech Delegation, but on all things Egypt. We're grateful for that. 4 things I just want to briefly mention specific to the GreenTech Delegation. First, similar to this session, please mark your calendars for April 28th. We're going to have a similar session. I see Jake Levine on screen with the DFC, USTDA, and our friends at USAID, focused on the financing instruments and the tools that they can bring to help U.S. companies not only on this mission but beyond. Second, I want to address. We've had questions. Is this for companies that are doing business in Egypt or new to market? All of the above. We want companies who are already in Egypt to come and think dynamically about what more you can be doing, and to think about how you're positioning yourselves in advance of COP27. And of course, for companies that will be new to market, this is a phenomenal opportunity to come and learn about these specific projects and the government of Egypt's priorities, and ultimately secure new business in Egypt. Third, working with AmCham and our friends in the U.S. government, we will meet with the government of Egypt's architects of COP27 and the decision makers for their clean energy projects, and specifically funding and support in the budget, where they're going to be putting their dollars. So it's a great opportunity to create new contacts and to learn about what those priorities and budget focuses are going to be. And the key dates, we're looking at the 14 through 17, but most of those meetings will occur May 15 and 16. So if you're thinking about your calendar, the 14th, so welcome reception. Last but not least, it's really important to note that this year we're celebrating 100 years of U.S.-Egypt diplomatic relations. I say that because, this is a huge opportunity not only to secure, new business, but it's an opportunity 100 years from now to people to look back at a role that you can play in making an impact in such an important issue, and such an important challenge at this moment in time. So with that, we're really delighted, and we want to turn to our friends at U.S. Embassy Cairo to help paint the picture of Egypt's economy and the commercial opportunities there. And we have 2 people, or actually several people with us from Post who, we couldn't ask for better experts. And I'm going to turn to first Leonard Hill, Economic Minister Counselor at U.S. Embassy Cairo, and then Keith Kirkham, Regional Minister Counselor for Commercial Affairs, and I think some of his team will join him. So with that, Leonard, the floor is yours, and then we'll turn to Keith, and then we'll use the remaining time to open it up for questions, comments from our participants. Leonard, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. And a couple of my colleagues are on from the economic section are on as well, and looking forward to answering any questions when we're done. I will just note a few headline economic items and then talk a little bit about what Egypt is stating as its goals for the economy in this year of COP22. The overall investment climate, which is a broad reflection of the health of the economy, is improving. We see the government making some progress on economic reforms. There's still heavy government involvement in the economy, but that is changing, and there seems to be, so I don't know if I'd say a generational shift underway, but there does seem to be privatization efforts and government recognition that private sector involvement in a lot of areas of the economy is important and is continuing. One thing particularly encouraging to me is that there's a small but I would say quite energetic startup sector, and particularly in tech areas. Our colleagues at the Agency for International Development, in addition to many other things that they do here, are assisting a tech accelerator. And we're seeing alumni of firms, US firms like Microsoft or IBM, returning to Egypt and starting their own businesses here. That, I say, an encouraging sign to me. As far as economic, the state of the economy, COVID was a big challenge, as it was to the global economy. Tourism dropped significantly in 2020 and 2021. It's now coming back to 2019 levels. There was a very timely IMF program that helped to cushion the economy, as did strategic investments from the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Qatar. Right now, the challenge is commodity prices, as it is for, I think, all of us. These drive up the cost of things that Egypt imports and puts a lot of pressure on foreign exchange reserves. This is particularly noticeable. Food, Egypt imports a lot of wheat, edible oils from the Black Sea area of Ukraine and Russia. Commodity prices have been rising for months before this, but the invasion of Ukraine certainly caused a major spike in those, and as a result, a significant boost in the cost of things that Egypt needs to import. So as a result of that, growth forecasts for the 2022-23 fiscal year, which would start 1st of July, are getting some downward pressure. I think the IMF is now saying it'd be about 5% growth during that period, as opposed to 5.6, which they were projecting earlier. Let me just quickly mention things that the Egyptian government is highlighting in their discussion of how they see the economy evolving in this year of COP27. First of all, they're talking about creating a more inclusive, green, and digital economy. They focus on a number of areas: evolving energy landscape, greater focus on renewables, developing sustainable and inclusive transportation networks, including electric vehicles, electric buses, subway systems, also transitioning towards a sustainable circular economy, improving water usage, irrigation, also smart cities, improving the urban communities. And finally, and I think strategically the most important, is commitment to building a more diverse and inclusive workforce, focusing on things like STEM education, particularly education for in those areas for women and girls. So I will stop with that and turn it over to my colleagues in the Foreign Commercial Service. Happy to take any questions later on.
Well, Leonard, I'm going to take that as my cue and introduce myself. My name is Keith Kirkham. I'm, as Steve mentioned, the Regional Senior Commercial Officer for the Foreign Commercial Service. We're part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. You may have worked with us before. I see some familiar companies and familiar faces. But if you haven't, I should explain very quickly that our work is to help U.S. companies gain sales and market share in any way that we can. So if you have worked with us, you know that a lot of our work is to advise, to introduce, to be the dot connectors, and to help you advance your business here. very often we're an extension of your own business development efforts or your own government relations efforts, but we work very much alongside companies on an individual company basis, really in a client relationship. And so in some ways, what you'll experience in the delegation and in your mission to Egypt will be to gain some excellent access and excellent information. I might suggest that we're the agency that will help you put legs on some of what you learn. We're standing by to help you. We're already working with many of your companies here, but we really want to see you capitalize and seize the opportunities that you hear about. And we have staff on the ground to help you do that. And we're both living and working in the market, working with our colleagues at the embassy to see you succeed. It's very hard to add much to what Leonard had to say without appearing to be gilding the lily, but I will just reinforce a couple of points. Obviously, in any market, there are these immutable forces that are driving the shape of demand. And in Egypt, population growth is one of those. If you only have 1% population growth, but you have as many millions as Egypt does, that's significant population growth in a short amount of time. And this translates into all kinds of manifestations on the ground for business and for the population. It affects housing, it affects energy demand, it affects healthcare. All of these things are the challenges that the Sisi government is coping with its program for a decent life. And a lot of the infrastructure investment is intended to mitigate some of the challenges posed by that population growth. It is a country in transformation, but like all transformations, there are some bumps in the road. Leonard alluded to a couple of these, the shocks to the budget from things like inflation, interruptions in the supply chain, and of course, these show up in terms of changes in government policy on how imports are paid for. Some of your companies may have been experiencing this if you're already doing business here. Even so, there's a lot of reason to pursue this market, to be optimistic. As I said, we're standing by to help you execute. We were here before COP27. We will be here after COP27. But let's begin now to help you seize this great opportunity. To that end, I wanted to introduce a great colleague of mine, commercial specialist Dina Besada. Dina is both our specialist for energy and all things related to sustainability and for digital transformation. And these two areas are key foci of our agency. And so I will stop talking and turn you over the very capable hands of Dina Besada. Dina, if you would. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Welcome, everyone. My name is Dina Besada, and as Keith mentioned, I'm the commercial specialist handling the energy and ICT portfolio in Egypt. I'm going to talk briefly about the energy sector and how important it is and the opportunities in the market. So the energy sector accounts for almost 13% out of the GDP, and including petrochemicals, of course. And because it's that big, it's #1 factor in terms of greenhouse gases emissions. That's why both governments, the Ministry of Electricity and the Ministry of Petroleum, they're working hard in order to try and work on more sustainable energy. There is a 2035 integrated sustainable energy strategy that emphasizes the importance of renewable energy and have more of a mix energy sources. So in that strategy, there is the aim of it is to generate electricity from renewables 20% by 2022, 42% by 2035. And this vision is actually now under another revision. So it's now under the Supreme Council of Energy's approval system to be, they want a more optimistic plan, of course. So now there is the 2040 Integrated Sustainable Energy Strategy, and they want to achieve renewable electricity generated from renewable sources to be 33% by 2025, 48% by 2030, and 55% by 2035. And from that, they are aiming at 45% from solar, 13% from wind, and the rest from the other sources. Green hydrogen is also a big focus in the government, and the Prime Minister himself, he has a big focus on it. That's why they are working with the EBRD in order to work on a national strategy, national green hydrogen strategy. And they already signed an MOU to develop a pilot project for 100 megawatt with a German company. There is another cooperation agreement with the Belgian consortium that was signed to establish the first industrial center for green hydrogen generation. There are other projects as well, and as we move along, we will hear more about new hydrogen interest as well from different companies. Because we are generating almost 55 gigawatt of electricity per year, we have a lot of surplus. And this surplus is currently being under the assumption that we will start exporting it to other countries. So we have currently some plans for that. The government of Egypt has already constructed several interconnectors between the three continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe. So we have interconnector links with Jordan, Sudan, Libya, and Saudi Arabia. There are others in the process to have interconnection links between us, Cyprus, and Greece. This is one of the aims of the country, to become the energy hub. That's why we are trying to export to the other countries around us. On another topic, there is the waste to energy subsector. And the waste to energy, it's a big focus as well. There is the waste to fuel, the waste to biofuel, the waste to energy, and there are several companies that are already interested in the field. And we have heard from the Egyptian government as well that they have interest in pursuing some of the projects. Currently, Egypt uses 4.2 million tons of municipal solid waste to produce in the upcoming 5 years around 300 megawatt. But we expect that to increase as well with the more projects that we start working on. And as well, because we have a surplus in electricity, we are working as well on the electric vehicles. The government has this as one of their most sustainable priority. So lots of the companies actually are working with the government and with the different entities, either to establish factories here to work on electric vehicle or assembly lines, or work directly with companies that can actually provide them with the electric vehicle processes. So the government is working on that. The Ministry of Petroleum, because they mainly work with the fossil fuels, the oil and gas, and they have lots of high carbon emissions, they are also working to reduce that. So they are working mainly on energy efficiency, gas as the fuel of choice, hydrogen productions, and decarbonization. There are lots of decarbonization topics going on. There are several projects. There is a consortium working on decarbonizing current power plants and refineries. And there are lots of other projects as well going on with the Ministry of Petroleum in order to reduce the carbon emissions, including flare gas solutions and other energy efficiency methods. The ministry has also joined the World Bank initiative for zero routine flaring by 2030, and this is one of the things that the government is focusing on. Thank you.
Well, Leonard, Keith, Dina, thank you very much. And a couple things that big takeaways, I think, is that to keep to a point you mentioned, that this effort, the ambitious goals that the government of Egypt has set, we're all going to be here, even after November in COP27. So, as a business looking at this market, know that this isn't just the sprint between now and November. That's critically important. But these opportunities are going to exist well beyond COP27. So thank you to our friends at Post for walking us through that. That was incredibly helpful. And the second thing I would mention, I think the epitome of this delegation just happened in the chat. So we're bringing together business, all the arms of the U.S. government, also engaging the Egyptian government to answer questions like Larry posed in the chat. Our friends from Commerce then immediately jumped in, and then Jake from DFC did. So this is the idea of the delegation. It's to bring all these assets together to help advance, U.S. commercial interest in response to this important opportunity we have in Egypt with COP27. But with that, what we want to do is use the remaining time we have for any questions that we have of Ambassador Thorne or any of our friends at Post. I mentioned April 28, we'll have a DFC and our other friends from the financing entities back. But given that Jake's with us, if you do have a question, we'll leverage his presence as well. So I would ask if you use the raise your hand function that I think we've all grown accustomed to. Feel free to jump in with a comment or question that you have for the ambassador or any of our friends out at U.S. Embassy Cairo.
Steve, if I could just quickly introduce myself too. I'm Dan Tobin, Managing Director of the Power Group at Exim Bank. So along with Jake, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Our team at Exim Bank are hoping to join this delegation as well.
Dan, thank you for being with us, and we'll see you and Jake and others back on the 28th as well. So thank you for joining today and that special session that'll follow.
Yeah,
Do we
our
have
pleasure.
any questions for Ambassador Thorne or our friends at Post, either about the overarching effort or anything more granular, specific to Egypt and their priorities that Adina and Leonard and Keith spoke to? Well, maybe our speakers really, there we go. I see Ambassador Cyril from Bechtel. You're on camera, so we'll throw it right over to you.
Well, thanks very much, Steve, and thanks to Ambassador Thorne and all of the other U.S. government participants and the Chamber and Hisham, all for convening this call. We're very pleased to be part of the trade delegation that will take place in May. Looking forward to the opportunities it presents. Of course, Bechtel's been active in Egypt for many decades. It's a market we know quite well, and we are already working as part of the consortium of American companies that was mentioned by the last speaker to assist the Ministry of Petroleum with a decarbonization initiative related to existing oil and gas facilities in the country. And it's an innovative idea that we're very pleased to be working on, and we've had a lot of enthusiastic response from the Minister of Petroleum himself and his team, but also from the other companies that are participating in the project. So we look forward to being able to highlight that a bit more as part of the delegation. But of course, we're interested in what the delegation might, what new opportunities might be sort of come out of the conversations. And I guess my question to Ambassador Thorne and others is, how do we expect these conversations to, I mean, are we going to be hearing from the Egyptian government on specific projects, or are we going to be pitching our relevant capabilities? I mean, what is the sort of, how do you think we should, as the private sector, be approaching these the conversations with the decision makers we'll be engaging with? Thank you.
Well, I've forgotten your name. Oh, Justin. Very nice to have you along. I talked to Stu Jones about this, and Bechtel, of course, is a sort of elemental part of anything that goes on in Egypt, and so I'm really glad that you'll be there, and you guys will be there. And I also kind of want to say one thing, and that is that, in addition to the green transition and the urgency of it, obviously, we're also facing a huge energy security issue in the globe right now, and that if the more we can find a way to make those two things work together as an opportunity to push for green transition energy, it certainly it is a goal of ours. So, I am, and I'll just say it almost every day, pushing Egypt to and the Egyptian government. I met with Minister Shukri last week, and just urging that we would like to know from the government what your priorities are and what the opportunities that you can identify that will be very helpful and very incentivizing for this group to come and learn what's available, what they can do, how they've thought about offering these things, and any ideas they have about finance and all kinds of things like that. We will continue to do that. I know I'm going to have a longer talk with the head of AmCham, Tarek, about this topic, because I think he can push the government. I think they're just getting, I'm going to be very direct here, I think they're getting this together. And I think it's certainly one of our goals, not just before this meeting, but in the subsequent meetings, probably in September, and Sharm itself, to to encourage them, urge them, help them shape the opportunities that we're standing by to offer. And the other thing I would just add is that, you know, Don, Dan, sorry, is I just wanted to say that one of the things that DFC is doing, DFC has gotten offered money to a Dutch company, solar company, that's helping build out that big, I've forgotten the name of it, the big solar field that they're working on in that's a huge project. And it just emphasizes that in many ways Europe is ahead of us, and that there are opportunities that they're seizing that our companies and we should try to help them seize that's going on. And here's an American source of financing going to a European company. So let's see if we can't change that.
Really important question, Justin, and Ambassador, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think part of it's going to be a bit exploratory, trying to figure out what the plans and priorities are. But we definitely view it, whether you've been like Bechtel in Egypt for decades or you're new to market, we definitely want, you know, companies to have those discussions, make those connections to figure out, you know, how you can bring your capabilities, your products, your talents to those Egyptian projects. You know, so we'll definitely want to have that as that's a key focus of what we're looking to do. Leonard, I see you have your hand up, so please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, we have been asking, and a number of people have in the government here and elsewhere have alluded to the possibility of lists being available. What we've seen so far has been more sectoral focus rather than you know, kind of one from column A and two from column B list that you can just, you know, pick something off of. So I think people should come, you know, should take a look at those sectoral lists, consider areas where they would have expertise and a competitive advantage, and yes, come prepared to talk about what you're able to do and to showcase the great talent that you have.
Thank you, Leonard. Really important. And I would say, you know, one thing for the companies to think about beyond the top officials, you know, the prime minister, all the ministers that we'll look to engage, you know, who have a piece of the sustainability portfolio or COP27, you know, they're going to come with their teams. You know, the people who at the end of the day will make things happen and that you'll want to work with and engage, you know, to carry forward after the delegation's visit. As well as our friends at Post, as Keith was alluding to, carry forward, you know, the work. So it's not just a one and done. You know, we really appreciate companies that you're thinking about getting on a plane, taking time out of what we know are incredibly busy schedules to come spend, you know, 3 solid days with us in Cairo. So we want to make that time in country as valuable and as impactful as possible. So we want to have conversations with you in advance to know what your expectations are and how we can help you meet those expectations. Do we have other comments, questions for Ambassador Thorne, any of our friends at U.S. Embassy Cairo, or specific questions about logistics of the delegation, anything like that? Please feel free to use the raise your hand function or just come off mute, and I would just ask if you just identify yourself. Any other thoughts for the good of the cause? Hisham, not to put you on the spot, but you're there on camera. I don't know. Again, AmCham is such a critical partner in all of this, not just for this delegation, but in all things, you know, U.S. Egypt, particularly when it comes to this commercial relationship. I don't know if you have any color, any thoughts you would want to add to the conversation.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for your comments. AmCham is working very hard in the preparation on the ground in Egypt because, as Steve says, this is going to be 3 very intense days. So we're working on 2 fronts: one on the program and how it's going to shape up, and how the companies are going to interact with the government and other private sector Egyptian private sector who are heavily involved, not just for COP27, but in renewables and other projects. Also, we're working very hard, as Ambassador Thorne said, that we will be working to really get the government to give us as much projects or details of projects. But as Leonard said, let's first look at the sectors, and those have been identified in general. Again, the more we get exact, well, not exact, but at least pointers on what the government wants in projects, or if they have already projects by name, I think that will be more useful. And we're working very hard with that in Cairo. Thank you.
Hisham, thank you for that. And one thing that does come to mind is that I think it's a fair characterization to say that the Egyptian government, Egyptian private sector prioritizes U.S. companies. U.S. companies are viewed as the gold standard. The companies that are here with us and that are coming on the delegation, you're who the Egyptian government, the Egyptian private sector wants to deal with. So you're pushing on an open door if you're not in the market already. So know that they're going to welcome you, but competition is stiff. There's no doubt about it, be it from Europe, from Asia. They're in Cairo frequently. So this delegation is very important, has a lot of support, as you can see, from the U.S. government, from the government of Egypt, and we do want to make as much impact as possible. So I'll say one last time, if you're not signed up, I would really encourage you to take a look at this opportunity, because it is a really important opportunity. I see Marty's back on screen. We've been joined, Kush Chokshi, our Senior Vice President for Middle East. I don't know if either of you want to have anything to add or jump back in, or Ambassador Thorne or any of our friends from Post, seeing that we have no other comments or questions. And I'll make one last pass. If we have any other comments, questions from companies, you can also reach out directly to myself or Anna Burris on the logistics of getting signed up as well. Kush, please.
I just thank you. I want to tell the members and companies on the line that this is a process. So we'll have the mission to Egypt. We will provide, to the extent we can, specificity on opportunities and projects and partnerships. But then coming out of that, we will continue to work through our US-Egypt Business Council, that's part of the chamber, the chamber's overall sustainability work that Marty Durbin leads, to be there for companies as you look to those partnerships. It's a long, it's a process, and we'll be there. And certainly, of course, as Marty and Ambassador Thorne referred to, and Hisham, we will be there at COP as well. So I just want to, this is not just a one-time exercise on part of our commitment towards the business community.
Thank you, Kush. Marty and Ambassador Thorne, maybe we'll come back to you. You all open this thing up. Why don't we come back to you for some final thoughts, final perspective before we go away. And I'll just mention, everybody, please keep an eye out. We're going to ask our friends Jake and Dan and others from the financing arms of the U.S. government to come back with us on April 28, and we'll drill down more specifically into that support. But Marty and Ambassador Thorne would love to turn back to you for any final thoughts.
Ambassador, I'll defer to you.
Okay, I don't have a whole lot more to add. I just think that, a lot of companies, certainly the people who know Egypt, know that it can be a lucrative opportunity. And if you haven't been there, it's worth coming and taking, kick the tires or whatever, and hearing about what they have to offer. They are, I'm pretty convinced of the fact that they are really committed.
Well, I think we lost the ambassador. Says he was just leaving, but I certainly caught the spirit of what he was leaving us with. So let me just no, I don't think he's back on yet. But just to add on to that, to thank everyone for joining us. Special thanks to our partners with the U.S. government, Ambassador Thorne, those of you on Post, the different agencies, or AmCham, of course, in Egypt. And finally, just a special thanks to Steve and to Anna for pulling all of this together. And this it takes a lot of work to make this happen, and they make it look easy. So appreciate their efforts. And again, as Steve said, if you haven't signed up yet, we really encourage you to do so. So enjoy the rest of your day, your morning, and we look forward to seeing you in Cairo.
Thank you, everybody. And with that, we'll conclude.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.